and welcome to Welcome Home Radio. The waters in the mortgage industry can be pretty muddy, whether it's investing, leasing, renting, home insurance, or myths and misconceptions. Welcome Home Radio has the answers for you, the consumer. And now, to help you make the right home buying decision for you and your family, here are your hosts.
And welcome to Welcome Home Radio, where real estate, lending, and learning come together. This is your mortgage market update for October 28, 2020. Stocks are sharply lower, down by 600 points on the Dow today. This could be over fears of COVID cases that could halt any recovery. The markets in Europe are also much lower as countries are reinstating mobility restrictions and contemplating shutdowns. Germany and France are considering general lockdowns for multiple weeks and even closing their borders. Daily U.S. COVID cases have risen by 65,000 over last week. Also key weighing in as the markets is the New York Fed's president, William Dudley, stated the Fed is really close to running out of firepower. America's future depends on more than ever on the government spending plans and what those are. The president and Congress need to recognize this issue. Rates are already low, investors demanding very little, and a weak U.S. dollar is supporting U.S. export volumes. New stimulus deal negotiations broke down this week and appears will not get a deal done before the election. The Senate is adjourned until November 9th, and the House will not return until November 16th. In economic news, the MBA released the mortgage application data for last week, and overall volume was up 1.7%. from the previous. Refis are still strong, 80% year over year. Purchases rose barely and is still around 24% higher year over year. The Case-Shiller Home Price Index, which is the gold standard for appreciation, showed nationally there was a 5.7% annual gain in August, which is higher than the month before. This shows a very strong gain in over the top 20 cities. To quantify this, a customer buying a home at $300,000, home gains at 5% in appreciation would benefit roughly $17,000 a year. This does not include gains in amortization, so it would be even greater. So investing in a home today is a great investment for any home buyer. The opportunities, and with this in mind, an option to many people with home prices on the rise due to higher demand and limited supply is custom home building or smaller organizations to work with. I am thrilled today to be joined by a very good friend of mine, Jacob Paxton with Buckner Construction and Paxton Homes. Welcome, Jacob. How you doing?
Hey, Blair. How are you doing? Good morning.
Great to have you. And of course, always with us is our co-host, Alan Pace with Fathom. How you doing?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Good to be here.
Good to hear you.
Yep.
Good to hear you. Jacob, I am thrilled to have you today. And with what I just went over in the market conditions, what are you seeing personally on home building and how you can help customers find that great home, that great investment? Because again, a 5% appreciation gain year over year, my goodness, that's money in somebody's pocket that they could be counting on if they're able to buy.
Right, Blair. So one of the biggest things that we're seeing, and this is kind of across the board here in Central Texas, but we're seeing a lot of, obviously with the prices increased for materials, it's still for the buyer, for the consumer, they're in a good position right now. Whether it be building or buying brand new, we are seeing it across the board. I have clients that we have built for, sold a year ago, and their homes are already, in a position to turn around and sell it with equity. The market is, that's where it's at right now as far as for the consumer.
Sure.
The biggest thing that I'm seeing across the board is we just can't keep houses on the ground. As we're building them, they're coming off as quickly as we can put them up. So I think that's pretty much across the board from what I'm seeing is that for the home buyer that was for new construction, we have been pretty knee deep and heavy as far as pushing homes out the door.
So there's a lot more pre-approvals, people able to buy, but there's just not availability. And I think, Alan, you would say that the same thing here in North Texas is that we see a higher demand and limited supply. Would you agree with all that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's really a good time to be a consumer. And I know builders are having issues with materials and labor, and the prices have gone up on some of that stuff. Lumber, I think, is through the roof, but demand is really high right now. And I think as the resale market goes too, there's multiple offers on those, $200,000 to $325,000 homes. And obviously builders have new homes to sell, and that I turn clients over to builders all the time. In fact, I'm doing a walkthrough at 4:30 this afternoon in Corinth, and it's because of we just couldn't find what she was looking for resale. So have you looked at new? Well, I didn't think of new. Well, it worked out great. It was one that was actually built, and they were wanting to get rid of it, and we walked in perfect timing. So she's only been hanging there for about 6 weeks, as opposed to, a lot of times a new build 6 to 9 months when you start.
That is great.
Yeah.
Well, Jacob, I want to help our listeners understand exactly your business. This is the first time we've been able to have a time with somebody in your industry that's willing to talk to us. And what would be some of the key questions that they need to know about the builder they're dealing with? What do you see as the most important information that they should be asking, that they should be aware of? Because I can see so many things that are, in challenging, from permitting, labor, materials, timing. I mean, all of that. What are those key questions they need to know?
Blair, I'm glad you asked that. So some of the key things that I see, and I'll try to cover kind of the top three here that I'm noticing, and this is more for the consumer. Two things, really for protection. One thing that I get a lot of questions on, and I'm going to start with down here. We get a lot of people who are to buy their lots, before they've talked to a builder, before they've, and one of the key things that I'm running into that I'm seeing is there's a lot of people who are putting money out, buying these lots up, not being educated on the building process and what actually goes into it. Primarily, I deal with veterans, and so this is where we get veterans into a position, and I do my best to get them out of it. But one of the biggest things they do is they talk to builders and they buy these lots, and what they don't realize is on a VA loan, and this is where your program has been extremely helpful. But they talk to these builders and they're buying these lots and not realizing that, at the end of the day, they're having to come in and put these carry their own interim construction loans. Most veterans are under the impression that that they're going to be able to qualify just like they would a VA loan. And so we get into a position where a lot of these guys are stuck with this lot. And can't build on it, and that this is a position I really would like to see come down a little bit, be avoided, because what's happening is these veterans are getting in a position where they think they're going to get a house, and I'm constantly having to tell them, hey, you're not, the only way you're going to do that is at this point is if a builder carries the interim for you, so the key thing, you want to work with a builder who's willing to carry that before you purchase. That's a big key, because if a builder's not willing to carry that interim construction loan, you have to ask the questions, a couple questions. Why are they not willing to? Can they even carry it? And you have a lot of people who just don't have the ability to, and you see that happen quite a bit. The second thing that we're running into is, as far as again, this is more for the consumer, doing their homework, but we're seeing, like Alan said, we're seeing the huge inflation on lumber. I mean, like you said, mostly lumber, but all the materials are going up across the board. Just being educated on the process, work with a builder who's going to sit you down, go over a process from A to Z for you. That way there's an understanding, a realistic time frame of construction. But I think the I have people come in all the time who said, "Hey, I've talked to 5 different builders, and you're the only one who's actually shot me straight, and told me this is realistic and this is not as far as building construction timeframes." Telling them, I'm constantly telling them, "Hey, you know, you're gonna be out there more than I am working on seeing your house." And so we do like I said, we do a lot of work with the veteran community. That's mostly what we work with out here. Where we're at.
Now, where are you located, Jacob? Let our listeners know where you're at.
So we're in the Waco, Temple, Fort Hood, all the Central Texas area. So we cover pretty much from Waco all the way down to Austin in certain areas, but primarily we're going to be in the Central Temple, Waco, Belton area.
And Copper's Cove area, that's
yes,
right
sir. So Copper's Cove all the way to Lampasas. We're fixing to do some customs out in Fredericksburg, Texas as well. So,
oh man, that's such beautiful. That was my last duty station in the military in 1990s when I got out, and love the Killeen, Copper's Cove area. A lot, like you say, a lot of veterans are in that area. I think you bring up some very critical points that listeners need to understand. Builders, okay, spec homes, they can build them, they build them and sell them, build them and sell them. Custom homes, or the home that you want to live in, I think one of the critical things is, how long are you planning on staying in this home? Is this your forever home? Is this your first home? Because I think Alan would back me up on this statement. Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, but first-time home buyers generally stay in a home 3, maybe up to 7 years, but generally it's right around the 3 to 5 year plan. And they like to find out what they like, what they want, to really go into that next step, that upgrade or forever home. Would you agree with that?
I've seen all of it, obviously, but yeah, I think when most people buy their beginner home, first time they've gotten a home loan, they're thinking 3 to 5, but I think in actuality, it's usually 7 to 10. Kids
Really?
get into a school system and they don't like to remove them. And, if you've got an 11th grader, you don't want to move them out and put them in another school to graduate. So, but yeah, I think with this so-called whatever we're going through, pandemic or whatever it is, a lot of things have changed. I see people being more, they need more space. They are making that change because life can be short. I'm going to spend the money. A lot of different mentalities I'm hearing as I talk to young, middle age, and old, and so I think it's changing. I think we're going through a dynamic right now where these stats are going to adjust a little bit. But yeah, in general, I'd say 3 to 5 years on the very first time. And 7's not unusual.
And normally, Jacob, you're seeing people that are buying their second, their third, their fourth home. It's not first-time home buyers. Is that correct?
Correct. Most of what we see are people who've already owned a home. A lot of our custom homes are retired veterans coming out of the military, and we see them in the same situation. The crazy thing is, I've got I'm backlogged to the point of, I've got so many veterans right now. I mean, just so many in our pipeline who we can't even start building their homes for. They have gone out and bought 5-10 acres of land out in Kempner, Coppers Cove, Salado, and they spend this money on this property and they can't build. And what people don't realize is, especially if you're building something over that $500,000 mark, a lot of banks are not going to even allow the builders to carry those interims, and and so you really have to just educate. These buyers need to be educated. They just need to be. That's the biggest key that I can say is, for anybody listening out there, is educate yourself on, if you're, a spec, like you mentioned, Blair, spec homes. Spec homes are fairly simple. We're going to build them. We're going to put them up, and those are just going to be for to turn around, resell. Those are going to always be there, but it's more on that custom side. And you talked about most people that are buying those spec homes, this is going to be their first home, maybe their second home. But those people out there wanting to build customs, usually they're trying to make that their forever home.
Yeah.
And they see themselves in a real tight position. And so we're seeing, like I said, we have we are so backlogged right now with the customs coming in from just other builders, and not, and I mean, we can't keep up with the amount of people coming in that exact position. I would say that's the number one position we're seeing.
Now, Alan brought up a great point, and with this change, in a lot of businesses in our economy, people are working from homes. Are you seeing more of a demand for 1 to 2 offices in homes for this forever home? Are you seeing, hey, we need an office space in the kitchen as well as we have an office space somewhere else? Are you seeing these types of requirements or requests, or what are you seeing as changing since the last 12 months?
So I think Alan would agree on that too. We are seeing a lot of that. I've got people who are asking us to convert their, formal dining room into offices because of that reason. They have kids working doing school from home, or both parents are working from home, and I myself have 7 kids, and so
Wow! Wait a
right.
minute! Stop the phone! Wait a minute! 7 children?
Seven children.
Okay, what are their
homeschoolers.
ages? What are their ages?
Well, they range from 4 months all the way to 16. So, and so
Wow!
they're all still home.
Congratulations, Dad. Man, that's awesome. I did not know that. That's a challenging fatherhood right there alone.
Right. Yeah, that's why I'm in the office today. Otherwise, you would see probably 4 or 5 of them on my shoulders.
Well, that's great.
And there's more answer to the question right there.
Yeah.
Well,
now moving forward about educating, what is generally the build time that you're seeing and the education process before? I think the education process is so much longer than the actual when we hit the ground running and we're building and it's going to go fairly fast. There's a lot more education, the land value, building up roads or getting, are you on city water? Are you on well water? I mean, all of these sorts of things have to be asked. Is that right? I mean, you've got to get a lot of permitting done just to set up a home. And then custom, are you dealing your own design team, or are they bringing a designer to you normally? What are those dynamics taking place?
Oh, you're asking a lot. You're asking some tough questions there, Blair. So, I'd say one of our worst things to deal with is Pinterest, right? Most people love Pinterest, and so we'll build your own design. If you bring it in, typically we have an architect, a fantastic architect who can pretty much draw up anything, and so we work hand in hand with both people bringing in their own custom designs, and then also working with with the architect. And one of the things that you just mentioned is key. And this kind of touches base on the last question you asked about working from home. I have 3 people right now who purchased lots in Copper's Cove that don't have high-speed internet service, and they have satellite internet, and trying to work from home with satellite internet is pretty much impossible. And so these are questions that need to be asked prior to purchasing. Is it city water, like you said? Is it city sewage? Do I have to drill a well? People don't realize that, hey, I can spend $100,000 just on putting a well, doing a septic, and lot clearing, stuff like that. So and that eats up a lot of their budget. And so that's kind of those are good questions you brought up, and those are extremely important things to be answered. We have a whole community out here in Copper's Cove, and that will never have high-speed internet service. And
Wow.
And so and they're all 5-acre lots, and so they looked appealing because the costs of them were not very expensive, and these people that want land, but now they're realizing, hey, my kid can't do school and I can't work from home. What am I going to do? And so those are good questions you brought up.
And Blair, if you listen to if you listen to the radio right now, any station, news or sports or whatever, you'll hear a lot of people selling land lots, 5 to 30 acres or whatever. And those prices are coming down quickly because I think what Jacob just touched on, you can't work if you don't have high-speed internet. You just can't even do your job. And that's a big deal. And you never hear them say, oh, we have high-speed internet. You hear them say, we have boat docks, we have this, we have that, electric on every lot, blah, blah, blah. But you never hear them say, we got high-speed internet or that kind of thing. And that's a big, big deal. That's one of the dynamics that we were talking about earlier. It's changing. Everything's changing.
Yeah, just when is it going to stop changing, or when is it we can put a stake in the ground? And I'm sure those are hard decisions that customers you have to bring up, and that probably makes your job very hard, Jacob. Because hey, guys, it's black and white. We got to draw a line here. We can't keep moving this expectation out and about. I want to welcome Tom. He's champion of something. I don't know what he is champion of. I think that's champion school, but we won't judge him on that. How you doing, Tom? Glad to have you here.
I'm just championing around today. No problem. I
Well,
sure do like the conversation where I hear a bunch of old people saying, well, they can't change this anymore because if they change it, it's going to be, oh.
Well, I want to introduce you to my good friend Jacob. He is a custom home builder down in the Killeen, Coppers Cove, Temple area, and he is here talking to us about what the dynamic is taking place with custom home building, doing these types of opportunities. Since the demand for homes are so much greater, we have a limited supply of specs. This is an opportunity for people to not only buy a home, have a maybe forever home, but also have some land with it. But again, the dichotomies, I think it's amazing that we went to internet, not sewage, not well water, not, access. A lot of times you buy land and then you don't have access from the road, and you end up having to buy more land to get access. Is that right, Jacob? Does that happen?
It does happen. That's not something I think we see a lot of. Somebody who's buying 30, 40 acres, we see more of that than these 5-acre tracts. Usually the 5-acre tracts are already developed in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, the key thing that's usually missing in there, and you asked the question, when is that going to change? I think a lot of these companies are going to, even when we get through the whole pandemic, a lot of these companies are going to still allow people to work from home, for cost, for all sorts of other reasons. They kind of got forced into it, but now they're seeing, hey, this works.
Economics have caught up to it, that the accountants, the CFOs are saying, hey, we don't have to have such a large building. Or my wife is working for a school district. She's been sent home for period. I mean, she's done. She'll never go into the office again except for large meetings in the meeting room. So again, I look around Plano and Frisco with all this commercial real estate and wonder who owns all this, and how are they just, the pucker factor for them is challenging because so many businesses are going to work from home. They're going to allow their employees that opportunity. And I think people like it. My wife was going to retire this past January. No, she's stuck on for another 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, she likes working from home. I can't stand it for the reason I've got to have internet access, and I'm a bandwidth hog. So I've got to be in the office, if not out. But I see those opportunities. Now, Tom, what are you seeing in the market? I mean, we kind of discussed in my intro the appreciation, the growth. We've seen growth in home pricing. We see somebody able to buy a $300,000 home, and in the first year they're gaining $17,000 just on appreciation. That doesn't include amortization and the compounding that it can take place. But these options of building, do you see this as an opportunity? What concerns do we need to bring up that we can challenge or ask Jacob about?
Well, I think builders are doing things a little bit smarter than they did in the past with regards to supply and demand. Jacob probably has already maybe mentioned about just being able to meet the demand with regards to access to materials and that type of thing.
Oh yeah, he's already stated how far behind he is. His pipeline is full and continues to grow where he can't deliver.
See, I was going to ask him to build a house for me, and I'm just like,
he's the guy to do it.
But I don't need it. Wait 5 years. I'm not sure.
Well, you trying to move out of Capel? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
As fast as I can get out of there.
I thought you were stuck there for another term.
Well, I'm stuck there for another 2.5 years, but it'll take that long to build a house, apparently.
It is getting there. I mean, we have just the trades alone. We have, for just a good example, electricians. We usually have a few that are on standby that we work with. I've called two of them that we've worked with in the past, and they're saying, hey, we're not even taking any new clients until January. Like, we're that far in advance. Cabinets. I mean, something as simple as cabinets.
Oh, yeah.
Our cabinet people, the ones that we typically use, have said, hey, we're not taking any new builders. And it's funny because if you go online to these places, their reviews, they're getting horrible reviews because they're having to turn people away. They're saying, hey, we can't even help you right now. And so they're getting these poor reviews, and it's not because of their quality. It's because they just, I mean, across the board right now, we had a house that we just finished that we were waiting 2 months for cabinets when normally that could have taken a week to 2 weeks, so it's getting, even the trades are getting that far backed up. So
what do you see happening? Is it the election? Is it the market? Is it what's going to break this free so that we can get back not to normalcy, but at least some realization that, okay, this is move forward? Because I'd hate to think that this is the new norm that we're going to be dealing with.
I think this is going to be the new normal for a while with builders, and I think Tom kind of touched on it too. But the biggest thing with builders that you cannot do anymore, and I see it happen too many times. This is actually why I became a builder, because of again, my veterans were saying just, hey, why did it take 12 months for my house to get built? Why did it take 15 months? And I said, that's a great question, And so I said, you know what, I'm going to build a few houses and figure out how long does the process really actually take? And so, and I mean, that was my primary reasoning for becoming a builder, is because I had a lot of people complaining about time frames. I'm also a licensed agent. So I had our clients getting in to that point. So I think this is the new normal for a little while, but builders in a whole have to start, giving realistic expectations up front. If I know it takes 4 months to build a house, I will give you the worst case scenario before I give you the best case scenario. So, I typically tell people, right now, I mean, I'm telling them probably 9 months to completion, start to close, is 9 month time frame. And that's not even accounting for weather, and these are going to be, if you want your customs, you have your home builders out there, your Centex, your D.R. Horton, these big builders who they can put them up, pretty quick, but you're also, that's going to come with the neighborhoods that they build in, and so that's realistic. I think anywhere between 8 to 9 months is, and that's cooking right now.
That is. So what happens once you go to contract, you start building? I mean, like you brought up something that I think a lot of people don't even think of, which is weather. It's not just materials. It's not the labor and managing all that as a general contractor, but it becomes, hey, what could happen with weather? How do you build in standard additional percentages for weather days and days out of not being able to can work and to construct and set those expectations that way?
We always try to. We always try to account for the weather. We've got people that we actually had a lot recently that sat for a month and a half. We couldn't even get plumbing in because of the rain. And then we had to finally get a pump truck out there, pump the water. So we do have to account for the weather. That's something we don't have control of. And, if you're looking at certain weather apps, they're wrong 90% of the time anyway. So
yeah. Well, you had something, Tom?
No, I was actually waving at somebody that came into my room.
Oh.
It's kind of disturbing. Hello.
So moving on down, the interview questions that I think are critical, or at least want to make you aware of. We kind of covered some of them, but let's talk about the service warranty side. I see a lot of complaints dealing with warranty after first-time home buyers buy their first home. Oh, they think the warranty is going to cover everything, and then, oh, wait a minute, they think they can repair it. They think it's an ongoing problem. Talk to me about warranty when the construction's completed, and how do you approach that? What are the key things that people need to be aware of?
So one of the things I do tell my clients, whether we're building them a house or we're helping them find a house that's already built, and this, I don't know that a lot of builders do this. I just do for everyone, whether we're building the house or not. We do a 1, 2, 10-year warranty for all of our clients. 10-year structural, we definitely go into detail about what that entails. If a lot of times, if you're using these warranty companies, I mean, you pretty much got to sue them before they'll, actually do the work. And so, sadly, that's what you see. What I tell everybody to do is, hey, have an inspection done, because we miss things too. What I don't want them to do is come back to me in 6 months and have a $10,000 issue, because sometimes the trades miss things, and people don't realize, hey, we subcontract most of our stuff out. Most builders subcontract everything, and so if the plumber missed a pipe or something, and that's even though they get inspected. So I always tell them to have an inspection done before the house is built, so we can actually go in and correct those items, and then have another one done before their 1-year warranty's up. We do pretty much a 1-year bumper to bumper, and so I will tell all of our clients now. Some of them do, some of them don't, but I say, hey, have an inspection done when we get to 12 months, so we can get in there and punch anything else out that that needs to be done. But yes, you're right. A lot of people don't get educated on the warranties. They think that certain things are going to be covered, and when they're not, they end up in a bad position. So,
well, another thing that's changing in the new construction thing, the 1, 2, 10 is there. I think a lot of the builders talk about that, but they've changed their format on the track housing. There used to be, you buy a house and then you go to a store and do upgrades, right? Go to their office and buy wood instead of carpet. A lot of the builders now are just offering a model this way. There's no changes. And I think that's got to do with material shortage. I think it's got to do with less contact, less interaction with a person due to COVID. And the last 3 houses I've sold new construction here recently have all been that way. It's like, well, we're this builder and we put only the best stuff in right off the bat, blah, 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 So that is one of the dynamics that's changing. Used to be you'd buy a house and then they'd give you X amount of money to spend in their store. And of course, you spend a lot more in that store and upgrade things you don't even need. But it's kind of going away slowly but surely. More and more builders. The one I'm doing this afternoon, that's the way that one was. And the other thing I love what Jacob said, that I tell all my clients, and I never hear it, is new construction, month 11, month 10, do the inspection. Spend the $350 to have an inspector come look at it. And he's right. Most people don't do that, but that was a great little point right there.
Well, that kind of leads into a question I had is next. Jacob, talk us about change orders. Are those going away like Alan is stating? Are they still a part? Change orders are challenging because all of us here can finish this sentence. If mama ain't happy, no one's happy. So mama has a right to change her mind after we've signed the contract, after we've already started, and all of a sudden, Southern Magazine came out with a new look of carpet or a new look of kitchen. What happens there? What do you allow change orders? What happens in that process? Does it impact financing, or can it impact financing?
So Alan brought up the point, and it's a good point too. So and what you're asking, Blair, those are all good questions. So change orders? We don't like them. No builder likes change orders, and I think I can speak for pretty much everyone out there. What Alan said about the builders, I mean, you look at D.R. Horton, you look at Centex, Stylecraft Homes, all these companies who used to just do kind of the bare minimum and upcharge you. Hey, I don't want the light, I want a fan in that room. And the problem that you run into is, like Alan said, is typically you're going to go well over, your allowance. And the problem we run into, and which is why you're seeing this more, why they're just doing it right off the bat, is mostly, I think, for appraisal reasons. We want to make sure that when we build a house, it is going to appraise for what we're selling it for. And we start doing all these change orders. People don't realize, but they're like, hey, that's only $100 more for that. Well, when you multiply that by 20 fixtures and then you want, XYZ. So what I do with our clients is we do give them an allowance based off the upfront appraisals that we get done. And if we start, they know up front, hey, if we blow past that, you're going to put that money in an escrow account, or you're going to have that, in an earnest money account. So it's covered. We do allow change orders, but I am very upfront with our clients and say, hey, this may cost, this may push the appraisal. We're building it in accordance, the appraisal is built according to the spec sheet that we submitted. So if we go past that, you want that outdoor kitchen, we can add it, but you're going to go ahead and escrow that amount. And then if it's not needed, we'll release that back to you at closing. And so that kind of protects us and the consumer at the same time. No one wants to build a house and then say, hey, we're not going to be able to buy our house because we're $20,000 over the appraised value and we don't have that, to cover.
Very good point. I'm glad you covered that. And now, one of the things of being a builder, I would think if I was doing an interview and I was talking, I'm going to ask how long you've been in business. I'm going to ask how many homes and how many referrals you can give me, as well as what insurance policies or what insurance coverage do you have? I mean, are these basic questions, or am I just a simple person, or because we haven't touched on those sorts of things?
Those are necessary questions, insurance, and not even just for us as the builder. You want to make sure that the builder has insurance. You also want to make sure your GCs, that your subcontractors, that they have insurance. A lot of people like to go with the lowest bidder. I mean, it saves you money. Lowest bidder is always going to save money. One thing that we do is we actually do require all of our trades to be insured. It costs a little bit more for that, but we make sure they're insured, and we make sure that when they're building one of our houses, we're listed as an additionally insured on their insurance. That way we know something comes back. I mean, it's going to be covered. And so, you just have a lot of people that aren't insured, and that does create some issues down the road.
And I guess one of the things that I would ask, if I'm buying or I'm looking in Copper's Cove or Killeen, Texas, how often and how long you've been there, because I think a builder has to know how many times has a commercial job happened and it was bid by a company out of Washington and they're building in Dallas and they don't know the permitting, they don't know the laws regulatory down here. That is critical that those local requirements for residential construction. Is that not true? I mean, how many challenges can come into play if they don't know that?
Well, and that's just something as simple as even coming up from, for instance, Austin. Austin's an hour south of us. We do have some builders that come up here because our construction cost is quite a bit less. So they'll come up here, try to build a few houses, and then they're out the door. And I've had a lot of people that like, hey, I had someone. You do want to know how long they've been in business. You want to know that this isn't somebody who's going to come build two houses because they thought they could just make a good chunk of change, and then all of a sudden they went out of business or they disappear and they're gone. Those are important things to know. Is how long have you been in business? I touched on this before. Can you carry the interim loan as a builder? Maybe not even asking the question, will you, but can you? Because those are good things to know, because if the bank is not willing to, if you don't have a bank that you're working with who's willing to work with you, I might be a little bit skeptical about, hiring that person to build my house.
Sure.
And I have seen it. I've literally seen somebody who, had horrible credit, talked to an investor to help them out a little bit to build this house. And, they could not carry the interim. They got these people to carry the interim. 3/4 of the way through their house, this guy bailed, realized, hey, this home building thing is not easy. And I don't really know what I'm doing. And so I have seen that happen up here, to where people have been left, just in a horrible position.
Well, and you manage so much for a home borrower, a buyer. Those permits are not easy to get people out there on time. From inspections, wiring, construction, framing, even the slab. There's so much that goes into it. You have to coordinate all that for them, and that's your representation. So I think it's just like hiring a lawyer in a lawsuit. Hey, how many times have you done this, and how successful have you been at it? Are critical, and you can't go at it just loosey-goosey.
No, that they are critical, and one of the, and I'll touch on this briefly, just because it happens more often than not. whenever, for instance, we just did framing on a house. People need to realize, hey, you have what's called a draw, right? Whenever you have a construction, you do a job, you have draws, and that's how your trades get paid. And a lot of times as a builder, I do let people know up front, like, hey, we actually will, I'll cover the cost of lumber before the draw, because a lot of times what happens is you can't get these trades won't come out there and do the work unless you can take care of them. And so sadly, that happens more often than not. And if you're working, you're working for somebody 15 months, to build a house, that's usually, believe it or not, it's what it comes down to. It's usually that they don't have the funds to buy the lumber, or they don't have something as simple as having a proper credit line with the lumber yard, because most lumber yards will give you a credit line. These are questions that are important to know, before you build, because I mean, if you don't have those set up, you're not going to get your house built on time. I mean, it's just not happening. So.
And it could stop right in the, like you said, bail in the middle, and then somebody else is coming along, has to clean up, and it's going to cost the borrower more money for sure. Since those
right, we always charge more to correct people's mistakes. Yeah.
That's right. Guys, I don't want to dominate the time here. Do y'all have any other questions for Jacob that going into this, or comments that we want to bring up? And I want to remind our listeners, ask your questions. We're right here online. We can jump on them, ask them. We've got about another 10 minutes left. So is there anything you guys, Tom or Alan, want to cover?
Well, I wanted to ask Jacob, in his neck of the woods, what are you seeing from developers as far as land development for residential property?
So developments are going up. I mean, as fast as land's available, it's coming up. We touched on this a little bit earlier, to where one thing I am seeing, and again, just consumer just know where you're buying. Look at the deed restrictions. You can always ask your builder for the deed restrictions. We have 2 communities out here in Killeen, and these are not acreage lots. These are residential communities that have no cable, because the developer didn't want to spend the money to run the fibers and the cable for that community, because it was going to cost quite a bit more. So now you have these subdivisions that literally have no cable. So you have
what's the price point on those houses, by the way?
They're going up. Price points are going. And those developments, they're competitive. I mean, they're not less because they don't have cable.
Are we talking 250 or
250 to 400 is pretty much
okay?
You're not going to find a
$250 to $400,000 house and not have cable.
That's right.
Yeah, and you got to go in the boonies to find prices like that. Like he said, 100 miles south or 50 miles south is Austin, where things are 30% higher. And you remember when Capel was out in the boonies, right? In Flower Mound, and you used to get a deal out in Flower Mound.
It still is out in the boonies.
I know, but the boonies caught us. But it's like, and the same thing with Copper. All those areas they're just 10, 20 years behind, and it's all going to go through the roof because people are moving to Texas. That ain't stopping.
It's already starting to, Alan. Like so Salado, is north of Austin. We get more calls in Salado for people coming in from California and Austin than we do from locally. Yep. Because it's just,
yes.
I sold a house to a client a year and a half ago for $675,000, and they just listed it for $1.2 million a year and a half ago. And
let's see you do that in a 401k. Let's see you do that in a 401k.
Hey, I do want to bring something up, and you guys help me bring this out. This is very important for borrowers, realtor, anybody listening to know and understand that NEGC, what can happen if they don't pay their subcontractors properly? A lien can come against that home that you may not know about until the time you refinance or the time you sell the home. And Tom, help our listeners understand the importance of this, because this is a legal process that they may not be aware of that takes place outside of their knowledge, but a lien can be put on their home. Am I not correct here?
You're very correct as far as that goes. And one of the things you'd want to make sure that happens, and Jacob probably can back this up, the subcontractors have a period where they can file it. It's not like indefinite. So they do have to get that within, and I'm not an attorney, so Jacob helped me, 14 days, is that right?
Yeah, and correct, and so they don't, if you don't pay them, Blair, like you said, they can certainly do that, and they will. They're not, they're going to protect their money as well, and so again, those are just questions. Obviously, you're not going to ask the question, "Hey, do you pay your subs on time?" But and not that they're going to answer honestly in that situation either. But it is something. I mean, there's you do want to make sure that you have all the insurance, the builder's risk policy in place. All that stuff needs to be in place as a consumer.
I'm sorry, I bring this up because I'm literally, again, refis are out the window right now. Everybody's wanting, and we're discovering. I've had 3 clients discover about liens they had no idea was on their property in reference to subcontractors. Whether it was a roofing that was done and that roofer subcontractor wasn't paid and a lien was put on, to a remodel situation and or a brand new home. Hey, we haven't done anything since we built this home, and it's 5 years later, and we're trying to refinance to a lower rate, and they have a lien against their home. And it's something that all 3 of those people were not aware of. They had no idea. And, I'm sure the notices were sent. I'm sure situations were made aware of. They weren't looking for it. They ignored some things. But the bottom line is this can happen and can affect your future ability in refinancing, selling, or an impact to anybody that falls in this situation. So it's something I think, I know Jacob, he does a great job. And again, he helps our veterans out. I am so thrilled to not only get to know him and his 7 kids. God bless you, son. I mean, yes, Tom, yes, 7, 6.
That's one more than 6.
Yeah, 4 months to 16.
4 months to 16. So, he's going to be going into this car driving thing going for a while here.
Jacob, have you figured out what's causing that yet?
Oh, yeah.
just need to check with you there, my friend. So,
hey, he's looking for a team.
That's why Tom works for a company called Champions.
There you go.
Well, Jacob.
Hey, quick question, Jacob. Do I got time for a quick question? Permits, are they a pain in the butt down there?
So permits they're not as bad. Permit times are really running about a couple days behind. Inspections and permits, they're not running weeks behind. They're running a few days at a time. And Blair, real quick, just that point you made about the yes, there is a time frame for them to file these liens. But what you're seeing is they can file. I mean, you can file a lien at any point you want. If the other party doesn't show up to say, hey, they're outside of their statute limitations here, to file that lien, if they don't show up, usually the court's going to grant that lien. And, even if it's 30 days out and, it can be fixed, but you're going to have to go back to court to fix that. And so, that was a good point you made.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on board. I want to give you some time. Tell us a little bit about your firm, how they might get in contact with you if they had questions. Additionally, anything along that line that you'd like to share.
Yeah, no problems. And so again, I think I touch base on the fact mostly what we do is work with veterans. We have programs in place strictly for veterans. We will build for anybody, but Blair, we've touched base on this, from start to finish. I'm a veteran myself, and if I've been in that position, and so we have a lot of veterans out here who are transitioning from the active duty to the civilian world, and they're waiting on their VA disability. They have some stuff come up where they have credit issues, and one thing that we do is we fix their credit for free. We don't charge for the credit repair. We will help them get their stuff squared away. Most of the time, the way our program works is if I have a veteran that I know is ready in 5 months, most builders will just walk away and be like, call us in 5 months whenever you're qualified. I will start building a house for that veteran, and we put them in a strict program. We put them in a strict program, but we will start building their house for them, knowing, hey, in 5 months we know you're solid, ready to go. And in the event that you're not, we will put other things in place for them. And so I did have a veteran recently who had a late payment, and it really wasn't their doing. I mean, it was a auto pay issue, and that pushed them out 6 more months. So what I did is we just contracted them on another lot and started building them this same house that's going to be ready in 6 months. So we do take care of our veterans. I definitely go out of my way. We go out to make sure that that you're taken care of. What I don't like to see. I can't stand when I have people in my office and they're like, we've been told no 15 times and nobody's willing to work with us. And, when you peel back the layers, it's like, these guys aren't that bad. They had a situation that came up. There was an extenuating circumstance. Let's help you get through it. And these guys have already been put through the ringer. If you've ever had to go to the VA, that it's not an easy process. And so trying to get things done. And so we really do make sure, again, we work on their credit for free. I actually have some VA people that work for the VA that will come in and talk to our clients and look at their medical records and make sure that, hey, nothing was missed when it comes to their VA disability. So we kind of have a full-blown program to help veterans. Now, again, we will work with anybody and help you build a house, but when it comes to that community. I'm from San Antonio, and we decided to stay here in the Fort Hood area, to make sure that we can service them. So,
amen. Well, thank you so much again. I'd like to have you back on if you're willing to come back on and flush out and talk about a couple other things. I know you're doing some exciting things in development. Guys, any questions, final comments, thoughts?
Well, it's good meeting you, Jacob. I learned a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Alan.
Anything?
What part of San Antonio are you from?
So I'm from the Helotes area.
Are you really?
I grew up in Helotes.
Okay. Well, I used to live out that direction in Bluffview and Deerfield, that area.
Good deal.
Well, guys, thank you so much. Thank you for listening. I appreciate everybody's time. I'm Blair Thomas.
And I'm Tom Holm.
I'm Alan Pace.
God bless. We'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks.